Hi, I'm Katina Anglin.
Hi, and I'm Ellen Peguero.
And this is A Good Show. Pastor Ellen, this afternoon we are going to be discussing the power of the two-parent household. But we want to set it clearly out to the public that this is not in condemnation or criticism of single parents who are in our society.
Definitely not, because we see in our little society, though we don't have all the statistics, that there are children who come from single parents home that does very well because they come from a good structure. You can also have children coming out of two-parent home, but because there's no structure or there's abuse and all these things going on, that is not good. So this is not really in any way, shape, or form to condemn single parenthood,
but to encourage
a two-parent home.
Right.
Because that's what God intended from the foundation of the earth.
Yes.
For a man and a woman to be raising a family.
To come together and become one, and from that they would be fruitful and multiply. Hallelujah. Okay, so I know that we have some articles that we were also going to cite that emphasizes and evidences the power and the value of having two-parent households.
Yes.
These articles, though, are American-based articles. There's not a whole lot of sociological data that is available in Cayman, but as soon as we are able to, we will present in a future show the sociological data that we are able to uncover that either supports or even discredits the presentation today as to the value of a two-parent household. Now, I do know that a future show, Mr. Michael Miles will be on with us, and he had spent a lot of time.
He certainly has.
Gathering his own statistics because of his role in intervening in juvenile delinquency, and so he has a lot of family statistics, and perhaps that is something that he would also be able to lend his view on using the statistics that he has gathered. The first article this afternoon that we would like to share with our viewers is the article titled The Power of the Two-Parent Home. It's an article from 27th of May 2022.
Quite recent.
Yes, and it's found on the clearlyreformed.org website. And it says, humanly speaking, there is nothing more important for personal well-being, positive social behavior, and general success in life than being raised by one's biological parents. That's the male and female you were talking about just now. Committed to each other in a stable marriage. And that's where you were talking about just now about the structure and being in a peaceful environment.
Correct.
Over the past 40 years, a vast body of research has demonstrated conclusively that children are deeply affected by family structure and that married parents are best for children. Any efforts, whether governmental, educational, or ecclesiastical, that mean to encourage human flourishing must take this reality into account as both an explanation for many societal ills and as a means to the end of hope for societal health and vitality. There is another article, and it's from Time magazine. It's probably the most recent article on this topic, taken from printed 14th of August 2023, and it says research shows children thrive in married parent households. And the article says the evidence is clear, even if the punchline is uncomfortable. Children are more likely to thrive behaviorally and academically, and ultimately in the labor market and adult life if they grow up with the advantages of a two-parent home. Numerous academic studies confirm that children raised in married parents' homes are less likely to get in trouble in school or with the law. They are more likely to graduate high school and college. They are more likely to have higher income and to be married themselves as adults. Research suggests that boys are especially disadvantaged by the absence of dads from their homes. And we see that in our own society, where a lot of the juveniles that are engaging in delinquent behavior have a home where the father is absent. And we know that the role of the father is the authoritative, in most instances, the authoritative figure in the home.
Yes.
But it is the father who often takes his child, and sits and disciplines him in love and understanding and patience. It's not, taking a literal rod and beating the child that causes the child to grow up into the great man that he was created to be. It's that fatherly love and guidance and his presence in the home.
Exactly, because that father figure lacking in a home not only gives the male child a disadvantage, but it gives the female a disadvantage.
Yes.
Because then a lot of times what you find that females raised without a father in the home that can show them what genuine love is. They begin to seek love that is not really love. It's all about emotions.
Yes.
And it also then causes females to become because there was not a father in the home, and if they do get married, then they don't really understand what it is to be a wife,
because
and to be a female, because there was not a father there guiding and directing. So right now, who's this man? Do I marry him to come tell me what to do?
Right.
So we have a lot of disadvantages when we don't have that solid foundation, when we don't have both parents that are working together in unity and raising that child, and both male and female, to understand who they are. We just don't have that. So while I don't, myself having been raised in a single parent home and really being raised without parents to some degree, my mother was always, there, but I really was more with my grandmother, which is another scenario altogether. So I'm actually no expert on this topic, but I can tell you this. I know the longing and the aching that I had for that father figure.
Yes.
Going to try to visit my father, find him, and so forth. So it is crucial that we really try to encourage people this evening that it is important. A child's life literally depends on having that structured with both mother and father.
Yes. And you said you're probably not an expert, but I think your own experience allows you to give your testimony, your own expert opinion on this is my personal experience, and I know what I personally went through.
Yes, it is true.
Thank you so very much for that contribution, Pastor Ellen. Now, there is another article that I'd just like us to quote from quickly. This one is from September the 1st, 2011, and it says, "Are both parents always better than one? Parental conflict and young adults' well-being." And this is taken from the National Library of Medicine's website on the National Center for Biological Information, which is a division of the National Institute of Health. And this article says that growing up without both parents is associated with a host of poor child outcomes. Children from single parent and step parent families have higher poverty rates and lower levels of educational and occupational attainment than children who grow up with both their biological or adoptive parents. They report greater substance abuse and risk-taking behavior such as smoking, drinking, and drug use. Further, these children are more likely to have sex at an early age, to be young and unmarried when they form their own families, and to experience the dissolution of their own romantic unions. There is a final article that I would like for us to just quickly look at some of the statistics as far as young black adults, young black families are concerned. And this is from the Institute for Family Studies. And it says that there's a clear connection between family structure and incarceration for Black young adults. Black young adults who grew up in a single parent home are about 1.8 times more likely to have spent time in prison or jail by their late 20s compared to their peers from a home headed by two biological parents.
Yes.
Those from step families are also more likely to have been incarcerated, again lending weight to that biological parent presence in the family. It goes on to say that young Black adults in non-intact homes have about 2 times the odds of having ever been incarcerated compared to their peers in intact homes. Young Black men from an intact two-parent family are much more likely to graduate from college than their peers raised by single parents and step families, and their incarceration rate is also much lower. More than 1/3 of young Black women, 36% actually, from intact families have had a college degree by their late 20s, and share among Black women raised by single parents is 18%, and amongst step families is 25%. So single parents is about half of the success rate of a two-parent intact family.
And I mean,
household.
why this is, go ahead.
Yeah, it goes on to say that clearly there is a social power and an immeasurable value to society in having intact two-parent households.
Yeah. Well, we know that these statistics, like you said, are from the U.S., right? But when you look at our little culture here, and you take those figures and you look at the population of the U.S. and our population here, and you look at the population of northward with young Black men
Yes.
in that,
Yes.
then I would say that our statistics are even higher than the U.S.
You know, that is an
it's-
interesting proposition, and one which we should do some more research into. But Pastor Ellen, today I will have the profound benefit of being present in this room for the continuation of the discussion on the power and value of the two-parent household. But because I'll have the opportunity to listen in to you as you interview the Honorable Madam Speaker, Catherine Ebanks Wilkes from West Bay.
What an honor. You know,
It is, it is.
You know, to be among Kim and women too, you know, and such a gracious woman as the Honorable Catherine
Ebanks
Wilkes. Yes.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker.
Well, I have the great honor and pleasure to welcome Madam Speaker, this is Catherine Ebanks Wilkes, to the Good Show.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you. It is an honor. It really is. Wonderful to have you. Now, may I refer to you as Madam Speaker or Miss Catherine? Miss Wilkes?
Catherine is fine. Yeah, Madam,
Yes.
whatever you prefer.
Well, I just like you know, we looked up, did a little research to know that you are the granddaughter of Mr. Harvey, the late Mr. Harvey, and Miss Gladys Ebanks from West Bay. They were two God-fearing members of the West Bay Society. Okay, there's actual life-size pictures of them in the museum. You know, so that speaks volume as you know your grandparents. I didn't know them. But I did know your dad and went to secondary modern school in Georgetown with him. So I know a little bit, not much, okay? Also know that you were raised in a two-parent home, and that's what we want to talk about this evening, the two-parent home where the mother and the father is in the household. And tell us a little bit about you growing up in a two-parent home.
Before we go there,
Okay.
going back to how I would like for you to refer to me as, the moment that you say you're Mr. Harvey and Miss Gladys' granddaughter,
That's it.
that is who I am.
Amen.
That is what I'm proud of. I just want to say that.
Wonderful.
That makes
Yes.
me smile from
Yes.
inside out. Equally, that my father is Austin, or was Austin Ebanks.
The late
and
Austin.
that you went to school with him. That makes me really excited. So So I just
He
wanted
was
to
a
say
nice,
that.
calm gentleman, so I imagine he was a good dad too.
He was an amazing dad.
So I want you to tell us a
And
little bit about it.
I've been thinking about our conversation before it actually started, because I don't want to discount to the individuals who are raised in single parent homes.
Right. We
Or-
did discuss that because
Okay.
we don't want to do that because there are a lot of good
Yes,
coming out, and
yes.
we discussed that. That was
Yes,
part of
because
the
I
earlier
have
discussion.
actually attended school with some individuals. I had a girlfriend who lost her dad when she was quite young, so she was raised by a single mom. And then I had other friends whose parents got divorced and they had blended families, but they all turned out to be successful
Of
individuals,
course, because
just like
yes,
me.
they are. We're not discounting that at all.
No, I know. I just
you know.
want to say it
So,
because I don't
right.
want anyone to think now that I'm
Yes.
going to brag about this life that I had and that it has placed me further ahead than anyone else, right? Because that's not the case. But I will say that being raised in a home with both parents was an amazing experience. And I wouldn't say it's just because mommy and daddy were in the house, but because mommy and daddy loved each other.
Yes,
And they
that's the
displayed
key.
that to us, right? And that, for me now, if you were to ask me, how has that impacted my life? That is where my moral compass was formed. So whenever I get lost or I am struggling with how to respond to something, sometimes even in my own home with my husband, we have children, I am reminded of how my parents dealt with the situation. Sometimes I can't do it as nice as they did. I mean, I'm going to brag a little. I think I have some bragging rights.
There you go. Yes, you do.
My father never, ever argued with my mom in front of us children. My mother didn't do either. What they did, we had the convenience of living just a 3-minute walk from the beach, from the bay, they call it, right? Bosun Bay.
Yes.
And so they would always go for these evening walks. And I found out years later, as an adult, my mom said that's where we would go and have our discussions.
How beautiful.
So that's the benefit that I have from living in a home like that. Is it made me feel comfortable and confident in who I was or who I am now. But I didn't have a lot of anxiety about what's gonna happen. We were very poor, very poor.
I think we were from this little rock, and we were
man.
poor. But when you have that type of environment where you have two loving parents,
We were rich,
you're rich,
very rich.
very, very much so. And I mean, you say there that you are now able to deal with, your family in a way with so much you've learned from them.
I tried.
You try, right? But you have that, you have
example,
it. You
that
have that
model.
example.
Yes, I don't
you
have the
that.
excuse of
Right.
saying I don't know.
No, exactly. And you made a very strong point there when you say that you didn't see them argue with one another, and that is a two-parent home, because we can have a two-parent home where the two parents are constantly arguing, fighting, and it would really have been better to be a one-parent home,
Exactly.
showing the love.
You're right.
So we understand that. But also I want to say that I know that your husband, Michael, also came from a two-parent home, and I was always very close with his mom, and always at prayer meetings and ministry, both of them being parents. So how would your children?
Sorry, I bet you learning some stuff about Pastor Ellen this evening that you
Yes.
didn't know.
Yes.
You see how much she knows?
Yeah, so how do you see, you
Sorry.
and Michael now? I think you already said it, but both coming from two-parent home and seeing both of those examples, they probably were not identical for sure, but it has to make a difference and an impact on your children now also. So how do you?
I think it definitely has given us both an appreciation or a value of being able to give or afford to our children what we had, right?
Right.
Because we know how impactful it has been on our lives. But you just said it as well, that it's important to just get the message across that it's more than just being in the same house with both parents, because that can be counterproductive as well. It needs to be where both parents are displaying love and respect to themselves, to their children. And if that isn't taking place, then it's probably better to consider, co-parenting or, single parent households, which we that's not something that we want.
Right. That's not something we want to advocate, but sometimes it's better.
Sometimes it's better.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of Michael's experience, I think the bit that we both shared with each other, I know he has shared with me that what he has definitely gained an appreciation for is just, the importance of making time to go to church. Like both his parents were pastors, right?
Of course.
So I often tease him and ask him, like, so do you have that preacher? You would know about it, right? The preacher kid syndrome. But he says no, he didn't have preacher kid syndrome. Sometimes preacher kids tend to rebel, and but no, it seems that he had the right balance. Their parents definitely instilled godly principles with him and his siblings. So.
Well, I actually lived next door to them when he was younger.
Oh.
For a while, when they were pastoring. So, I never heard them, arguing and fussing and that sort of thing. I mean, we were fence and fence. He might remember, but we did. As a matter of fact, in those days, his dad also had an upholstery shop.
Right.
So fantastic business, but. It is so important for us to recognize that, yes, there are two parents home that children can come out and be very delinquent and be because of the lack of structure, the lack of respect, something you really emphasized there with your mom and your dad, that there was always that respect that they held for one another and that love that they showed each other, where you can have a two-parent home and father's abusive, or the mother at times are abusive. So this turns out abusive children also, But we really want to know that our stress to our viewers that when you have two solid parents, and we particularly, as they say in quote, my learned friend here, and invited you on the show, and I'm so glad that she did. I admire you too, as a young lady, I admire you. I'm not going to tell you how old I am right now, but anyway. It is so important that the two-parent home is really understood, that it is crucial, because it's really what God instituted from the foundation, because it brings such balance. And here you are talking about that balance and that compass and that is given you. So we want to encourage our viewers out there today, if you're in a two-parent home, I hope that, you are also, embracing one another and loving one another and respecting one another. I don't want to meddle in anybody's business, but I just want to put that out there.
I think also, sorry, if I may, what you two ladies are speaking to about the family structure is what is often referred to as the intact family, all right? And research has shown that when families are engaging in unloving behavior, they're arguing in front of children, there's physical abuse, it will lead to the same outcomes as though the home was absent of one parent. So a two-parent family home where there's fighting and arguing, there's bitterness and resentfulness, will impact the child in such a way that it is the same as having a single parent home, which is an increased rate of risk of incarceration, lower grades, and so on, increase in risk of antisocial behavior, and so on. And I think it's really important that our viewers understand that while you can have good children come out of a single parent home, and while you can have a bad outcome in a two-parent home, the most successful outcome that is statistically proven is a loving, two-parent, respectful home. And you weren't here when we actually started the show, but what you attested to in your experiences with your parents, never seeing your parents argue in front of the children. You lived in a harmonious state. And you in turn, you now model that in front of your own children.
I
try.
Yes.
In front of your own children in your own home, right? And so this is how a positive cycle is being handed down from generation to generation.
You're right.
What will happen is that there's a greater chance that your great grandchildren are also going to live in a harmonious home, right? And they too will bring forward a harmonious family structure because of that modeling that has happened from your grandparents.
Right on down.
No, I can remember Mr. Harvey, all right? And Mr. Harvey wasn't known to speak no hard words. You didn't hear him out there hollering the place down at nobody. And I remember Mr. Harvey and Miss Gladys too. And so, this is what her own father was modeled to her own father, who modeled it to her.
It's true.
And now it's being modeled to her
It's
children.
true. One of my grandfather's very common phrases was, "Blessed is the peacemaker."
Yes.
And he would always say that at the appropriate time.
Yes.
Blessed is the peacemaker. And that, as you said, has trickled down, right?
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons why my mom and dad decided to take their walk to the bay, because they were there trying to make peace and do it in a way that but yeah, it goes back to what you were speaking about earlier about, solid biblical foundations as well, because I'm pretty sure that is probably what helps guide the peace.
Yes.
Right? Because then you're reminded of scriptures and the way in which God wants us to respond to each other when you're going through a period of I want to say resentment, but that's probably not the right word. Just turmoil, a period of turmoil, stress. Just choosing to respond in a way that is reflective of God's love.
Yes. I remember after your grandmother, Gladys, had the stroke.
Right.
Your grandfather,
Oh man.
elderly man, caring for his wife.
Yes.
And I was at the house one day and he had cooked some food and he had brought it to her,
Wow.
And just watching how he handled himself and how he handled his Miss Gladys's reaction and stuff. And it was just so admirable.
Oh, wow.
Everybody who was around was just watching how Mr. Harvey, in so much love that brought forth the patience, and it says that love overcomes.
That's right.
And I know that everybody who watched that afternoon was impacted by his love for his wife and the way that he, in his elderly years, was caring for his wife.
And he didn't want anything other than that. He insisted, he still had, support,
right.
But he wanted to be there, to ensure she had her meals the way he knew she enjoyed them. And it was really nice to see.
That's
to be able
a
to experience.
beautiful, experience, isn't it? To just see that and to model after that.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have that privilege of coming from a two-parent home or almost not even a one-parent home, because mostly my grandmother, because with being a single parent, my mother working and all these things. So I'm just so admirable of you and learning a little more and your background and your family. And I'm taking away something from, this show today. Walk on the bay. Take a walk.
A walk.
Take a walk.
Yeah.
And encourage. But I want to say something to you, because you said it twice that you're trying, you're not. But I think, if I can just quickly say, I think we're dealing the children nowadays. We got to be, I think, a little more patient, because it's so much more outside influence. The media and all these things where you didn't have that. So so I want to encourage parents at this point that be a little calmer and more patient with their children. They're coming from a different angle.
You're right. You're absolutely
coming from
right.
a different
You're
angle.
absolutely right.
And Yes.
When I say trying, I don't just mean as a parent, but as a wife. Because, yeah, I'm sure my husband will tell you sometimes he probably would wish that I would just, listen to what he's saying without having to have the last say. And he'll always remind me, you have to have the last say. And that's where I say I'm trying, because at the end of the day, going back to blessed are the peacemakers, sometimes it means just walking away and accepting that, maybe I was wrong and he was right.
Yes.
But that's what I'm working on.
I know that's helping a lot of people out there.
I don't want anybody to feel that I'm here today to say that my life is perfect, and that because I was raised in a home with both parents that I live a flawless life. My husband can tell you that we have to take a couple of walks every now and again.
Yeah, take a walk.
Too bad we don't live close to the bay. We'd be there every evening.
Yes.
But yeah, certainly no shame in saying that it takes work.
It's
Make
work.
the marriage work.
Right.
Yes,
It's work.
marriage is not a bed of roses.
Listen,
you have to put work into it.
Yeah.
But it is something that's worth investing your every effort into to make it work. Not just for the contentment between the husband and the wife, to be able to enjoy their company, to overcome their challenges and the issues that will arise in daily life between a married couple, but also to keep that foundation sure beneath their children.
Yeah.
Beneath their children's feet, for them to be able to have a solid foundation to stand on. Because, listen, you said just now that your father and your mother went for walks.
Yeah.
So we got a new thing whenever we get started going for a walk.
Take a walk.
Yeah, we're going to the bay. We're going to the bay.
Yeah.
But your foundation was never disrupted. It was always stable. It was always level, right? Not saying that there may not have been times when you have a little sibling rivalry inside the house and stuff like that, and that you might have had some hard times, and maybe you had to eat something one night that you didn't want to eat because that was the only thing your father could prepare. Or your father could provide for your mother to prepare, right? But
who said her father didn't cook?
Well, that is also true too. Especially if it was the fish, it was probably him cooking.
He cooked.
Anyway,
There you go. You see.
Yes. But it was all done in love, and so even when they had meals, they wish they were eating Kimman style beef this evening instead of fried fish again. They were eating it in love, And so I think that her heritage from her grandparents to now, or better said, her children's heritage, right? Looking at her and her husband, their grandparents and their great-grandparents, because they're able to look back and see 3 generations of this.
Yes.
Two-parent household. And I think that is good evidence of how two-parenting household can bring forward stability in our children or our future generations because of having that model to reflect on.
And I appreciate what you said there, Catherine, that you don't want to come across as being flawless and nobody sort of without faults and without issues and so forth. And that's what we need. People need to understand that we're not talking about a flawless childhood or individual, but because of having that foundation, you're able to work through it. Yes. And it's wonderful. None of us are perfect. Thank you, Jesus, for that. It's only Him. So it's just such a privilege to be here with you this evening, and I know that the viewers out there appreciate you and appreciate what you have to share with them. I'm not sure if she got enough to share because me and you talked a lot. But is there anything else that you would like to just say to our viewers, when it comes to household?
I just
Take a walk on the beach.
But I just think it all comes back down as well to love, right? You have to love yourself before you can love someone else. You have to love yourself.
Thank you.
And I going back to me saying that I don't live a life that's flawless. I found myself in that place, and going back to my moral compass, and having both of my parents to remind me of what they worked hard to establish, I was then reminded that I had to love myself, and that very well meant being by myself. And so choosing to be by myself for a period of time allowed me to align with someone that was very compatible with me, that their beliefs align with my beliefs, and now I'm able to offer a healthy home to my children, right? So I want to encourage those persons that may be in a situation where things don't seem bright. I think the first thing you have to do is start by loving yourself.
Okay.
And once you do that, then everything just starts, the path just gets a whole lot easier.
Yes, yes.
So I just want, I have this opportunity to share with your viewers, and that's what I would want to say to them.
Yes, beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Another thing that you're unaware of.
You said that too.
No, last week's segment was on self-love.
Oh, wow.
And you have not had the privilege to see that yet.
Yeah, because I haven't
it
aired
ha-
it. It's going to air tomorrow.
Yeah, it airs tomorrow.
Right.
Yes.
Oh,
And
wow.
so you're not aware of that.
Oh, wow.
And it's so important. Self-love is so, it's not selfish. I think somewhere along the line, at least for me, I used to think, well, to love yourself was just to be selfish.
Right.
Of course, not understanding it. No, because that's what the Word of God tells us. Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your might. And then love your neighbor as yourself.
Amen.
Or love your,
Yeah.
you can't love
yourself.
anyone else. And no matter how good that compass may have been,
Right.
having two-parent home, if that is not,
Yes.
part of that compass to love yourself, embrace who you are,
It's
throws
easy.
it. Yeah.
Easy to get lost.
It's easy to get lost. Very easy. I think you had another question for my speaker, Miss Catherine.
Well, actually, my question got consumed in the conversation.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
I'm actually left without a question.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'd be quick to be the first one to speak about the Constitution and
I
but
know.
I think that the foundation, her testimony to, the biblical principles that she has been exposed to and has absorbed and is applying in her own life is probably one of the best things that was spoken this afternoon.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for attesting to how God and knowledge of God in Jesus Christ has also played a role in bringing you to where you are today.
Definitely.
Because from your grandparents that you can
Definitely.
remember until today, being married to Mike, who is the son of pastors, and,
Yeah.
and the two of you walking in the sight of the Lord, taking your children to church and stuff. And so thank you very much for setting that example to them as well. And thank you very much for being on the show this
Oh,
afternoon.
thank you for having me.
It's
I,
such an honor. And a
I've
privilege.
enjoyed, even though, I'm sharing personal stuff, it's still nice, right? It's nice to be able to reflect.
Yes.
And then in reflecting, I am reminded of how truly blessed I am, to have been given an opportunity to share a bit about how I was raised. And I was just thinking while we were speaking that, my life as a child wasn't shy of chaos. We lost our home to a fire when I was 11.
Yes.
When I
Yes.
think about how my parents navigated through that, and never let it shake them, never let it shake, their relationship with each other. And there was some tough times. But it just, sometimes you take that for granted, and it's in reflecting that you think like, wow, and then I think about raising children. As you said, we live in different times, right?
Yes.
It's so easy now I'm guilty of it. I come home, kids are on their iPads or their devices, and, we're all kind of doing our own thing. But looking back, even though we didn't have really a whole lot of resources, every one of us had a bicycle.
Yes.
And they took us out. We went for a bicycle ride to Barker's every single weekend.
Wow.
So it's things
I
like
remember
that I need to challenge myself to kind of get back there. I live a hop and a skip away from Barker's, right? So it would be
Yes.
easy to do that with the kids on a Saturday morning. But again, it's in reflecting that you kind of sometimes when you self-reflect, it gives you sort of like that little enthusiasm to do
Yes.
more, to be
Yes.
better.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've enjoyed
So-
the show.
Yes.
Thank you. You know, you're speaking just now about the gadgets.
Yes.
You know, and I think that one of the things that parents don't pay enough attention to is what is on that
That
gadget.
gadget.
You're right.
You know, you're trusting your children that your children are going to do the right thing. But the gadget itself has a technology behind it and an algorithm. And it will pop up anything on the screen in the moment for your children, you know? And they're always going to be safer riding bicycles.
You're right. Maybe not. If they get as many skin knees or buck toes that I got, maybe not.
Oh, you know, first thing you told you.
Back those days they didn't have helmets, so at least just let them wear a helmet now. Okay.
Yeah, I remember
And
every
okay.
time I go up, I told my dad, I said, don't worry about that. He said,
Oh, you get more than
that.
that.
Heal. That can heal. Don't worry about that. That can heal.
I used to hear the phrase, "You get more than that before you get a woman." Before, you know, so we had all these little Cayman phrases,
Right.
and that, you know. So, but I think overall, when I reflect and look back at where we're coming from as a society, we need to do a lot of reflection
Yes.
and get back a bit and go back a bit. You know, bring our children in line. Well, I got grandchildren now. I got great-grandchildren. Actually, I'm giving away my age. It's okay.
You make it
It's
look good,
okay.
though. You make it look good.
It's okay. It's quite okay. But it's such a pleasure. I know there's so much more you could share with us.
Definitely.
So we'll do this another time because I think it's just an honor. Honestly, I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Thank you. I'm
Okay?
thrilled. I'm enjoying it.
Yes, and it's just I admire you and I respect, you and your office, but I respect you as a woman,
Thank you.
as a woman,
Thank you
as a
very much.
mother. May God always bless and guide you.
Thank
Amen.
you.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for joining us for this edition of A Good Show. Join us each Saturday and Wednesday at 12 noon on Big Fish 95.5 FM.
Join us on Sunday and Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on Cayman Live TV, Channel 33, Logic.
Thank you for joining us for A Good Show.
The Good Show is proudly sponsored by H. Philip Ebanks Attorney at Law. Learn more at philipebankslaw.com. For all of your legal needs, Philip Ebanks Attorney at Law. Call us on 749-8082.